So that happened.
Okay, so I wanna move to next topic now, and um, sorry, wait, yeah. So basically, now it's reaction to the apparent, according to Trump guys, win, and this troubled me, and I'll show you an image just to help you to tell you why this troubled me. This troubled me. Now, I got sent this video. I didn't finish watching it, and I'll never finish watching this video because someone needs to tell me, why are you crying? Why are you in tears because Biden won this? Because again, this now goes back to this whole thing of the plantation, the Democrats owning black people. If you don't vote for me, then you ain't black. All this kind of stuff. Because I'm just trying to understand the psychology here. Because we have to now talk about the bigger thing. As people have said, okay, Biden. Let's say Biden wins. Let's say Trump, the whole thing doesn't go through, and Biden is the president. Now, what is he going to do? Is it now back to regular programming where, okay, things may be a little bit better, but it's still the same as it was under Obama, under Clinton? Because I remember even talking to my mom. My mom said, okay, but this whole Obama thing, in those 8 years, what did he actually do? This whole first black president thing, what did he actually do? I remember Biden was his vice president. So what did these guys actually do? So I don't just get your guys' thoughts on the reaction to the news that Biden won, specifically from people like Van Jones and so forth. Just what was your feeling about the reaction? Could you maybe understand the reaction based on people's hatred and frustration of Trump, or do you think that this reaction is slightly odd because you're like, okay, were you really voting because you're celebrating Trump leaving, but are you really celebrating Biden being president when you were in that booth? You were not voting for this dude, you were just voting for the dude he was going up against. Let me confess to Tony on this.
So I think you were right in your previous statement in stating that most people on the Democratic side were just simply voting against Trump. I think that Biden is a very lackluster candidate. And
Mm-hmm.
for that very reason, I find it completely embarrassing that this materialized in the way that it did, in terms of this being the most, you know, voter presence that we've ever actually seen. More so, it's embarrassing to me that a lot of it, especially in particular, like with Georgia, it's all on the whim of this one black woman, Stacey Abrams, who, for the life of her, couldn't even get, a governorship. But then they turned this entire state blue just for the sake of Biden getting into the presidency. I think that that's embarrassing. I think that that is an indictment against maybe even Obama's presidency. I mean, they didn't even vote blue even the second time when they realized it could actually happen, that there could be a black president. I think also very it's unsettling that Biden could be number four for a while, and then Kamala, to bow out gracefully at number six out of all the Democratic presidential candidates. And then she randomly gets selected, and now all of a sudden we're praising her as like, oh, the first woman to be vice president, and oh, she's black and she's this. But then when she was running for president, nobody cared. And I think, again, it's just an embarrassing moment for black people. It's also extremely frustrating to see Van Jones cry anytime, whether it was when Trump won and even now with Biden. This whole idea
Wait,
of he could be a better parent now.
wait. Did he cry when Trump won?
Yes, he cried then. He did a
I
whole
think
story about how his
I don't think he
grandmother was
cried
homeless.
exactly. I don't think he
It,
cried exactly, but he was being a bitch though. Like let's be
yeah,
honest, he was being a bitch.
and I think, again, all of it plays into this reality show of what they've made Trump's presidency about. And the conversations are steering away from what the policies actually are versus what he's actually tweeting. Like, what is he actually doing? And in terms of, your mother asking, what did Obama do? Of course, he got us into war with Yemen and even got us involved with Syria and whatnot. And what no one can actually say is that Trump started a new war for us. No one can actually point that out, but we'll still say that he's the worst president ever. Not to say that some things that he says are not divisive to some. But I think, again, for him to give
Now. I'm gonna jump in with that.
Wait. Let me land. Let me land this point.
Yeah,
No. You have to let him land his point. Let me land his point. Tony, land your point.
but
Land your point.
again, Again, I say for Trump to win or to garner 40% of the Latino vote, it totally castrates this idea that he's just prejudiced against Latinos, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that he was specifically talking about DACA and things of that nature, and we have to contextualize what he was actually saying. And I know that in the past we talked about, well, the U.S. president should speak clearer, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But again, the media, I think, just they never really got to the brass tacks of what he actually did. And again, I get it that it may not have been full throttle with his prison reform, but the fact that he even tried to do that and Obama could never say that he did that. Again, in the last couple of, I want to say maybe the first debate, or it was the second debate, when Trump was saying that he did more than any other president aside from Abraham Lincoln. Again, the fact that President Obama could never make that claim is an indictment against him. And the fact that more Black people came out and voted and turned states blue for Biden versus Obama, we should just all be ashamed, in my opinion.
All right,
Hitman.
like,
Man, go ahead, man. Like that.
Wait. I'm going to go to Hitman, and then I'll go to your MB. So Hitman.
Yeah, I'm just saying that there's a lot of wrong in what Tony's saying. But I'm gonna first talk about what he said right though. I'm gonna first say this. I said it before. Van Jones is a bitch, and he was a bitch. He was a bitch when he talked about when Trump got elected, and he's being a bitch now. He's always been a bitch, so I'll forget about him. Now, the things I will say though is that yes, Trump did a lot of good stuff. I mean, if we're being honest, economy wise, and also the fact is, but the problem is though that there's a lot of shit that he didn't do. There's a lot of shit that he made worse, and there's a lot of shit that that's the reason why a lot of people got turned off from him, and why everything looks the way it is. So I'm gonna talk about some of the things he did wrong. The number one. The thing I think that really killed him a lot was his reaction to COVID-19. I mean, he pretty much treated it like it was a complete joke, even though we haven't done any real research on it. I mean, and then he sells the rhetoric to the right. And the other thing too is also another thing that he's done that's really been bad that no other president's done is that he's had a constant rotation of staff. Like he's basically fired. I think he's fired everybody in his position, every person that's worked for him in the position at least once. I think he's the only president who's done that. So he's rarely had continuity in any of the positions that he's had. Everything from Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense. I mean, all the way to his media advisors and whatnot. He's had 4 media advisors, by the way. Obama's had 1. I mean, pretty much Bush has had 2. It's pretty crazy. I mean, on top of that, focusing on some, making friends with some people and making enemies with others when you're talking about international relations. Yes, he didn't start a new war, but what he did do was that he burned bridges in certain areas with our primary allies, with our allies in Europe. But at the same time,
how did he burn bridges by demanding them to invest 2% of their GDP into NATO? Come on,
NATO.
I mean, it's not even like that. It's that's part of it, which I partially do agree on. But then again, on the same point, we do have to it's some of the indictment that's coming out of that is jumping in there and then not paying as much attention on the Russians and focusing 100% on the Chinese. That's why people say
Hitman specifically because we need to get guys in as well. The reaction, just specifically on the reaction, your thoughts on Van Jones and the people's reaction to Biden and Kamala winning. What were your emotions there?
My emotions there is that if I'm just going to be straight to the point, Van Jones' reaction was embarrassing. As far as the people, I understand. I mean, because CNN got, I don't know if people saw the CNN coverage of it when they were in Atlanta, but CNN they were playing "Fuck Donald Trump" Like someone was blasting "fuck Donald Trump" and like CNN let that play on live television, and they didn't
Of
like
course,
fucking
no, but
censor
come
it.
on. Trump has single-handedly effed over CNN, and they're like, nope, we're gonna because CNN are not a news. They're not. They're a company. They're not an actual news objective institution. They are a very left-wing
But the
company. So
here's the
CNN were like, man, we're gonna ride it,
here's the
man.
problem. Here's the problem with that. The problem with and this is the big problem with Trump. The big problem with Trump is that he's vilified anybody that goes up against him. And that's his biggest problem. He's vilified pretty much everybody on the left, basically saying anybody who disagrees with him is far left and fucking like he's called so many people stupid. He's basically called anybody who's an expert that disagrees with him an idiot or moron or whatnot. I mean, he's basically antagonized anybody who goes up against him. So, do you think that they're going to come back in kind and like be nice to him, or they're going to vote for him, or they're going to give him that? No other politician, no other president that we've had has had that shit against them. But it's because of what happens. You get what you get what you give. That's all it is.
Okay, MB.
Mm, I think it was extra, but Van is known to be extra. I mean, but the point that was accurate was, yeah, as a people, black folks didn't come out as hard for Obama, but you got to understand something too. Black folks came out in record numbers for Obama for that time, not by today's standard, but for that time. Just like we have more, we some states had 6 million additional voters over 2016. The fact of the matter is, it's just more people are active. But yes, a lower percentage came out for Obama, but I think it's because black folks got a taste of how bad it could be. I can understand the sentiment from Van Jones. Me personally, feels like we've awoken from a nightmare where people who are supposed to be, you found out that people who you thought were cool, you're cool with, were basically hiding hoods the whole time, and they just felt bold enough now to say it. What these folks are fighting about now, talking about censorship and other bullshit, they're not mourning. There's no more censorship today than there was before. Oh, well, that's not true. There's more censorship because there's more blatant calls for violence. There are entire Facebook groups where they talk about beheading people and shooting people for no other reason than the fact that they are black or a Democrat. Those are being taken down. You have people who are more upset about that than the fact, and they're more upset about the actual protests than they are about the reasons for all of it. And it's only because it affects them. Me personally, I feel like Van Jones's reaction is the reaction that a lot of black folks feel internally, but he's 100% being a bit of a bitch by showing that externally, like the way he did. But that said though, I feel like I see a lot of our brothers from the motherland in the comments over here talking shit. But I gotta, I want to emphasize the fact that the way that you motherfuckers feel shit and the way that we feel shit as African Americans is not always going to jive. It's the difference of experience, and it's the difference of growing up in this country versus immigrating here. And I feel you, but you're not always going to see or feel how we see or feel because you don't have the experience behind it. Just the way that we don't have the experience of Van with his family that led to that. You don't have the experience of growing up in this motherfucker with people feeling the way they feel about you. So that's, I feel you, but.
Oh. Okay, so wait, let me just hit this and I'll come to Tevin. So from Namdi Nwajide, thank you for the super chat. Says that I'm black and I don't like Biden because of his record. Obviously,
what
relating
record?
to the
What record?
crime bill. He has to maybe look at his 94 crime bill.
Oh yeah, so he made he had the crime bill, right? But he also pushed with Obama for the Fair Sentencing Act, right? To try to, and you got to also look at the times, right? We were just getting out of crack. They were hitting folks who sold poison to the communities hard. That was their virtue signal at the time. I'm not forgiving it any more than I'm forgiving Kamala Jones. Kamala, she's an actress. Any more than I'm Kamala Harris about her fucking, her record that she built on the backs of black men, putting them behind bars. But I'm also not going to pretend that those black men weren't doing dirt. So
okay, now
I feel it.
Wait. Let MB, because I need to come to Tevin and then Rod. So MB,
No, so I feel that, right? But they changed the rules behind in the fair sentencing. They changed the rules behind what was considered real weight, right? Because it was low as shit before, and it did disproportionately affect the black community. But can we stop fucking pretending that we had black dudes randomly being scooped off the streets and put in jail behind this shit when these were dudes who were selling poison to the community? Fuck them. That's my point of view.
All right. Tevin.
Yeah. So I just really want to have the discussion with MB because he made up some really good points. Okay. But MB, I really think that a lot of us ADOS people are not well informed when it comes to politics. People, and Tony can back me up about this. No one gives Donald Trump credit about funding HBCUs. No one gives Donald Trump credit about, he basically said, hey, it's not mandatory to have a college degree to work in the government. And, that helps the black community in America. No one brings that up. And I wonder
why.
True. Wait. Come on, let him land.
True.
No. Let's Tevin land, and then you can respond. Let's Tevin land. Tevin, go for it.
So I'm just curious, like I know you guys talked about last week or 2 weeks ago about Ice Cube and all these other celebrities promoting Donald Trump and everything, but it's a reason why is it such a problem for an ADOS person to support the Republican side, and then because we say, okay, the Republicans are racist, and it's like, no, they're not racist. Right? Like, I can make an argument. I can counter your argument, say, okay, they're not racist, but, I don't want to get into that. But I'm just saying for you to point out that hey, it sucks to be a black man in America. But man, dude, I'm living in Germany right now. My life is fucking great. So I don't agree with you that we have all these challenges that we had back then. Right. So what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that we're all we're all not getting the same opportunities as our white peers?
Wait,
as a black person?
Real quick, Tevin,
what are you saying?
Wait, real question to you, Tevin, and because I still want you to finish before you guys can respond. So, do you believe with Biden coming, because you just mentioned about this HBCUs, you don't need a college degree to get job in the government. So, do you feel that now with Biden and Harris coming in, it is now going to take things away from African Americans in America that Trump may have put in, according to you?
Yes, I think so. I think it does him a disservice. No, because Trump did put in some really good policies for ADOS people, and that's why I'm a little confused. And I think and people didn't Joe Biden's been in politics for over 40-some years. I mean, we keep talking about the crime bill, but okay, what about his new chief of staff that also sponsored this bill? These guys are professional politicians that have been in for 40-some years. And now you have this guy like Donald Trump that everyone calls a radical because he's not your traditional politician, that now everything he's implemented is such a problem. It's because we're so comfortable and so used to being fucking handed shit that now this one guy is like, okay, I'm not going to go the traditional route, and I'm not going to be PC about it. And people don't like that, and people don't like that at all.
But Seven, real quick though,
you fucked up and you showed your hand.
Wait, but Seven, don't you think that okay? I get your point about him not being traditional, going another route, because again, I despise politicians because these guys just lie. But don't you think that it is problematic that Trump pushed it too far in terms of when you look at North Korea, you look at what he was doing with allowing the military to be involved with the protesters, stoking racial tensions and so forth. Don't you think that he just went a bit too far with regards to how laissez-faire he was in his presidency?
He did
Time
not
out.
filter. He did not filter his audience at all. No, he had no filter, and he divided the country more than what it was. But I don't think it was to a point where it was
Bro, we
us
would have had a
against them,
fucking
Do you
right?
we would
smell
have had a
that?
fucking civil
Do you
war.
smell that?
We
I
would have had
smell
a
it.
civil. We would have had a civil war if he gets reelected. We're gonna have a fucking civil war because motherfuckers are gonna go on the street and destroy shit, and
They're
people
already
fucking know that
talking.
shit.
They're already talking about shoot a fucking Dem or shoot a black person in the street like a dog. I've fucking seen dudes saying this when they didn't think anybody who wasn't thinking, differently than them was looking. Hitman and I both seen this. Corey White and I have seen this. We've all seen this over here. You're over here talking about, well, you guys aren't really giving Donald Trump. I mean, bro, understand something. Understand something. Going to the historically black universities, he didn't give them extra money. The money that they received from him, all he did was make it so they don't have to sing and dance, shuck and jive every fucking year for the same money that they're getting. He didn't give them additional money for the cause.
MB, did they get money? Did they get money under Obama?
They get money. Yes, they get money every year. Did I stutter? I said that he gave them the money without them having to apply for it every year. That's the only difference. You're over here talking about it like so basically what he wanted to happen was that some black dude would tell another black dude, hey, he did this for us, which is bullshit because you haven't actually looked into the depth of the thing. You're just repeating.
It's pretty much like
hold
everything
on.
is a big assumption, but okay.
It's not a big assumption. You literally just rattled off that the historical black colleges got money from him. Not true. You literally just asked, well, did they get money under Obama? Motherfucker, yes, they got money. Listen. They get money under every president. They just have to, just like every other private university or public university, they have to shuck and jive and dance and make a case for them getting X amount of money. The only thing he did was write down that they don't have to do that anymore.
That's significant.
That's fine. But what I'm saying
Obama
is,
never did that, and it took 2 years for Obama to even meet the Congressional Black Caucus. That is a problem for the first black person.
Okay, but you know what? Though, what you're not understanding because you don't get politics is that you can't just go and have It's the same way that they said John Legend couldn't come out as super political with his first fucking album. It's because you have to gain the trust of people by playing the game. That's what people don't understand on the street. You can't just come
Obama
in there. Listen, I'm out. Okay, I'm sorry.
Because he's black. That's why he had to play the game. When somebody like Trump can come in and do exactly what he wants to do. That's what you're saying?
Most presidents don't enact any real shit until their second term because they have no chance of getting elected again, regardless of their color. It's not political for them anymore. They appoint people who they want to appoint.
I want to say this. So even now, Biden ran on this idea that he can bring together Republicans and Democrats, right? So what you're telling me is that he was not able to do that like he was able to do for the last 40 years of his career when he was vice president?
What do you mean?
I'm saying Biden has been saying that what he can bring to the table is that he's been able to work with Republicans and work with Democrats. When you are in the second highest office, you're telling me that Biden couldn't then influence people to then support Obama?
Where's your proof? That he didn't before? You don't have.
Who didn't do what?
Wait.
Where's your proof?
I want to bring other guys in. Wait, guys, chill.
And in fact, that they lost more money.
Wait. Sorry, I'm going to because we have to get other guys in because we will get there and other guys have to have a chance to speak. So I want to try and keep this thing at least as civil as I possibly can. I want to come to Corey now. So Corey, again, you've heard people say your views on the reactions from people seeing Biden win, and do you think things now will become better or more positive under Biden, even if we're not getting some disagreements from what you've heard there, Corey?
I think most reactions are premature, as we don't have an official count. I mean, like they say, the news count, that ain't nothing. I think it's, people run around celebrating, singing songs. I seen somebody the other day on my personal feed said, what kind of theme song? What's our theme song for this victory? Or something like that. And I said, man, y'all really don't know how it works, do you? I think it's I think it's premature. I agree with the other brothers that was kind of a bitch movie up her crying. I get it, but I wouldn't have cried about it. You know. Let's see. What else did you? What was your other point? Oh, and is it going to be any better? Shit, maybe for white folks, black folks, we're gonna buckle down and do what we always do. We're gonna make a way. You know, we'll keep making our progress forward, I believe.
So why this sort of celebration? So you just said that it's going to be fine for white people, and you didn't say not necessarily for black people. So why do I look at TV screens and seeing black people dancing, crying, singing, all that kind of stuff?
I think that's a typical reaction of the masses. I think that those people, like I said, premature. You know, not really understanding that. And it says president elect. You know, I mean, I think it's a premature reaction. I don't know that it requires much more explanation than that.
Okay.
Very, very premature.
All right, Rod. What about your thoughts on people's reactions? And should people really feel hopeful with a Biden thing, or would it just be more of the same?
Man, I definitely agree with Corey that the reactions are a bit much. They are a bit premature. Uh, but as far as that's concerned, I mean, I don't think it's any different than any other election when as soon as AP or some other major source like that reported that it was done or that there was a projected winner. I think we always have celebrated that as, you know, this is the incoming president or this is the remaining president, if that was the case. Um, while it is a bit premature to have gone to the lengths that certain ones have, and like Corey's talking about getting the theme song and all this kind of stuff, I think in this year 2020, if nothing else, we've learned that anything can happen, anything is possible. We have no idea, man, what really what's about to happen. We hope that there's some kind of finality or conclusion, but we really have no idea. I mean, and as far as you know, Van and his reaction, man, save asking him what made him cry, none of us know. He's entitled to react however he chose to, because I'm pretty sure if we were to go around, some of us probably done shed an ugly face tear over something that we probably shouldn't have or didn't need to in retrospect. But the fact that he did it publicly obviously is making him get clowned a lot more. But at the end of the day, man, a lot of people shed tears over that moment. I mean, you had a president in office. Whether you feel one way about him or the other, he made it clear in a lot of cases how he felt about a lot of us. Going to the lengths that he did to pick fights with the NFL, with the NBA. I mean, these are black communities. These are black heroes of sorts. Not necessarily my heroes, but I get it. You know what I mean? And to have your president who, to me, should have always been one who was viewed in his position as a judge of sorts, who was not biased one side or another, and he always made it clear. I mean, he made it clear how he felt. He always did his dog whistle thing, speaking to his part of the globe, basically, if you will, even trying to dictate to other countries how they did different things regarding their travel. So, I mean, there have been a lot of situations to where, at the end of the day, if this man is out of office, um, I'll tell you this real quick, and then we'll move on. When Obama was first elected, and a lot of us, obviously not to the numbers of this past this current election, gone went out and voted. When he got into office and nothing happened at my house, I knew then I wouldn't have an overreaction to any other man being in office. At the end of the day, I still got to take care of my family. I better get my black tail up before that alarm clock gets goes off, or even when it gets off, and go work, go give me $1 or two and support my family. No president that I can ever recall in my 40 years of living has ever had any direct impact on what goes on in my house. So I understand the fervor. I understand the reaction of a lot of people. But if you think about it, at the end of the day, who was in that presidential office didn't really have as much bearing on your house as it did voting for your local officials, your mayor, your governor, of the which many of us don't even know who those people are. And they're having a far more direct impact on what's going on right on our block than we even want to realize.
Well, Rob, my mom, she got penalized for not having health insurance thanks to Obamacare. So I'm pretty sure it did affect my house.
Okay, that's her house, but I appreciate you.
So, I mean, anyone else want to sort of jump in here before we move to our next topic? So I think Tony and MB, because I cut you off. So let me come to Tony, then I'll go to MB. So Tony.
So I was a little disappointed in the one comment that was made that we shouldn't pretend like the people that were affected by the crime bill, we shouldn't act as though they weren't mostly or majority criminals in general. I will say when Kamala Harris has a person who can come and get exonerated and then win a $13 million settlement because she falsely accused him or falsely went against him, and then did whatever with evidence, that's a pretty big deal. And I think that in terms of Black men going to prison at high rates has always been a factor in American society as a whole. So this idea that we should just forget that there's a historical reference to Black men just going to jail because there's a lack of jobs, I think that unless like we've caught amnesia or we should just pretend like history isn't what it is, I don't think that that's a fair statement to make that the crime bill was just arresting a bunch of people who were just on crack and dope. I do think in terms of the crime bill with Joe Biden, a problem that I have with that narrative is that he didn't just make the 1994 crime bill. He made multiple crime bills. And a lot of times he was making it with segregationists, some who in fact died and then he did the eulogy for. So again, this idea that, that they just randomly, picked up just a bunch of drug criminals. I don't think that's the case. And then even a lot of times how easily we forget that poverty breeds crime and desperation. So again, instead of finding jobs for these people or perfecting the economy in these poor areas of the world, or not even the world, but of the country in general, and just, subjecting them to just going to jail, like I think that's a problematic stance to even start from. Like instead of dissecting why these people are criminals or why you believe that a certain sector of people are more criminals than they are, upstanding citizens, that's problematic. And I think a lot of times these people that we consider criminals is mostly because American society has failed them from the get-go and they had to resort to that. Not to say that there aren't options, but let's just be upfront and real that all of us will not succeed. And no matter how many opportunities white people, and then however, the structure is, white folks, then Asians, whatever, Black folks have always been at the bottom of the totem pole in general. And that's why we have a lot of the poverty that we have. And the last point I wanted to make was the COVID response, as far as people being disappointed in Trump. Again, people use Trump as a distraction. And when in fact, Trump can't go state by state and tell them, shut down your state border. That is the responsibility of the governor. And a lot of times people have listened to the media and just blamed everything on Trump as if his only role and responsibility was shutting off the country to other countries. But what each individual state does is the responsibility of the governors, of the mayors, and all of those other elected officials who just blame everything on Trump as a way to avoid the responsibility that they have for the people.
All right,
how are you going to end that shit? That whole diatribe, how are you going to end that with people have to take responsibility after you spent 5 minutes talking about how the system fails Black people?
What does that have to do with the governors and the mayors that I'm talking about that have the direct effect on the people as far as responding to COVID? I'm not talking about the crime part. The crime part was what I was addressing.
The point I'm making is that you can dwell on. Now, first off, I never said that it was all these people were this way. I said most of them is what I said. I never deal in absolutes specifically so someone can't trap me like you try to in a you said all people. What I will say though is this: most of your response was excuses for Black people to fail. I'm not saying that the deck is not stacked against us in many ways. I'm simply saying to you what my mother said to me. So the fuck what? Push harder. just because the system is rigged doesn't mean you give up and sell poison to your fucking people. Nor do we cry for Pookie and Nene when they get sent up the fucking river because they were selling weight. I don't like that's the problem with us right now. We're so quick to scream about a cop fucking us up and planting shit. But we don't talk about the fact of what that brother did to be put in that position.
No,
And I'm not saying
Wait, let's land.
I'm not saying that 100% of the time it's our fault. I'm not. What I'm saying is, if we spent less fucking energy crying about the brothers who put themselves in shitty positions and more energy teaching our kids not to be in those positions in the first fucking place, then we wouldn't be where we are. You know what? I grew up in one of the worst ghettos in this country during crack. Most of the people who I grew up with were either became cops or they were criminals. The rest of the small percentage like me are civilians who made good, right? And the thing about it is, we all had the same choice. Our parents and our families were all in the same, socioeconomical group. We were all people of color. Why did people like me and a few of my friends make it, and others just straight the fuck up choose the wrong way? Because it was easier.
All right. Let me jump in. All right, here's the deal. So, to continue on the MB's point and expand on that, it gets into the whole crime bill thing, because the crime bill wasn't just pushed. That was pushed by Democrats. That was pushed by Republicans, and that was approved by the Black Caucus, the Black Church, and local people in the Black community. So if we're gonna try to say, oh, this was all Joe Biden's fault, or this is all Kamala Harris's fault, everybody that was involved at the time, this is everybody's fault. It's a mixture of self-accountability at the top level. Another thing too is that still doesn't. I mean, even with the guys fucking up, that still doesn't leave the guys. That still doesn't leave the cops with clean hands, because the cops are still fucking up. They're still fucking people up, and they're still killing people. But that's a different topic. Let's not get too far into that. But either way, people mess up. I think the thing that we have to cover is that, let's get back into the election. But in terms of that, it was a bad. I mean, politicians make mistakes, and some of those mistakes have resonating effects. But this was one that was approved of by multiple people, including multiple leaders in the Black community.
And I just want to add that it was approved by Black churches and Black politicians because of the concessions of rehabilitation centers, of building up those communities as well. And again, my point is to say that impoverished people are targeted in general to get them off of the street, whether they are criminals or not. And that's my point. The vilification of Black men in America is historical. I'm not saying that there are not criminals out there who are pushing drugs, but most of the Black people I know are not pushing drugs. And what you just said was, I don't know, that most of them are just criminals. I don't think that that's a fact. But
I said most Black people are criminals. Step the fuck back.
You said most people.
Wait, guys, we need to move on. We need to move on because we'll be careful. So I want to move on to the next thing. So I want to talk about Kamala Harris right now. I want to talk about Kamala Harris right now. So